Taylor Decker's on my all-22 fantasy team, by the way.
Stop it. Nobody cares.
Taylor,
I don't care, and I'm in the league.
I'm just trying to hype up the future of fantasy football here. They told me we could hype it up.
Nobody cares about your fantasy team. That's one of the
It's
cardinal
my
rules
way.
of broadcasting. Regardless of the medium, they don't care.
So the strategic component to this game is through the roof.
Your predictions, right? Your forecasting in fantasy football into how good is this player.
It's gonna change the industry.
Yeah, I moved to the old town where it goes down. Look at me now. I wrote my goals down. I hold it down. Made myself proud. Say, look at me now. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the All-22 podcast. My name is Chris Lombardi and I'm joined by Bobby Acker and Ray Cotto, and we are the founders of All-22. Guys, it's been a little bit since we talked. Here we are, Eagles and Chiefs Super Bowl. What are you guys most excited for, Bobby?
Literally the worst matchup I could have thought of, like from a fan perspective. But still, like from like an all-22 perspective, these rosters are both loaded. And like, I think it's going to be a great game no matter what. So as a pure football fan, I'm hyped.
What about you, Ray?
What is the issue with like the Chiefs is from a fan perspective?
I'm just tired of it, dude. I'm just tired of it. Like, you know what I mean? I just want to see somebody else. I love Joe Burrow. I hate Eli Apple, but like you love Joe Burrow enough where you just kind of want to see it for him.
Yeah, but that's exactly why I'm glad the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, because it was like every time I want to root for the Bengals because like DJ Reader is awesome and like everyone else is really cool. It's like Eli Apple just opens his mouth on Twitter, says something, and then like his mom says something on Twitter too, and it's like I can't root for these guys.
I think she deleted her account, right? I think she's like off now after they lost. But like you got to think like the Bengals PR person like goes to their GM and is like, "Yo, we got to get rid of this guy." Like super likable team except for this dude.
Yeah, I mean the scouts should have also said that, but that's another story. So,
but it was Mike Hilton, right, who did the Burrowhead comment. So,
yeah, but I didn't really think he meant that like in like a trash talk kind of way. Like if you go back and listen to it, it was just like a thought that popped into his mind, and then it got blown out of proportion because it's like, oh, he's trash talking now.
Yeah, it's like, doesn't Burrowhead sound cool? Like that's cool, right, guys?
Yeah,
and then people took it and ran with it. Whereas like Eli Apple just says stuff, and it's like just be quiet,
dude. The tweet with the Cancun on 3 was just that was it for me. I'm done.
Yeah. You know how good at football you have to be to try to get away with something like that, and he is so far from that it's just I know like we have a lot of like Cincinnati listeners, and like I am with you guys like 98% of the way there, but you just got to get rid of Eli Apple.
If he was an Eagles player, I'd expect that. You know what I mean? But like a Cincy player, not really.
But I agree. The game is going to be fun overall because it's the two best rosters in the league. One of them actually had a tough road to get to the Super Bowl. The other played like a preseason schedule to get to the Super Bowl. So we'll see how that helps or hurts them, I guess.
Two huge matchups.
Yeah, I actually told you guys this, but like what I've been doing every week is I bet on the teams that I don't want to win. So that way, if they win, like I come away with a little bit of money. So I'm betting the Eagles big this weekend, dude, or next weekend. I'm going in.
The Chiefs have never had to wear white, right? So they're going to lose because of that.
Yeah, totally. So I'm not going to be sad when Philly wins. I'll be sad, but with a little bit of money in my pocket.
Solid strategy. There's two matchups I'm super excited for. So Jason Kelce versus Chris Jones. We should be able to see a little bit of that. And then the exact same matchup the other way. Creed Humphrey, maybe versus like Jordan Davis. Could be fun. Two monsters just toughing it out.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So we said it last episode, right? The first season of All-22 has come to an end, and there's a ton to unpack. We began reviewing the top performers of the 2022 season and debating the updated player rankings in advance of the release of our mock draft tool, which we're super excited about. Last time we did offense, so why don't we go ahead and jump into defense this time, guys, starting with edge, right? 6.03% weight. The edge positions, right? Injuries were the defining story for the edge position. 4 of our preseason top 10 guys missed major chunks of the season, right? TJ Watt, Joey Bosa, Chase Young, and Rashawn Gary missed a combined 42 games. 5 of the remaining 6 guys either met or exceeded our expectations. So starting with Max Crosby, our preseason number 2 edge, he finished first with 77.1 all 22 points. And our preseason number 1 guy was Myles Garrett, finished number 2 with 76.1. Another guy, just to point out, Nick Bosa had a huge year, 90.9 PFF grade. He missed 1 game due to injury, and then 2 others because he actually didn't meet the snap count minimum, something that we might decide to look into next year, might be able to give commissioners a little bit of flexibility there as well. Few young guys had breakout seasons that we should probably mention, right? Jalen Phillips finished this year 3rd in all 22 points. He was that guy, right? All the tools, but just had injury concerns, so he fell in the draft, but he's still just 23 years old. And then fan favorite, Hard Knocks favorite, Aiden Hutchinson, who's thought to be the best prospect of the last draft, had a really strong rookie season. He finished actually 5th of all of our edge rushers. So a lot of good guys to talk about there. Last one real quick is Josh Allen, had the best year yet of his young career, 82.9 PFF grade, finished 6th in all 22 points. So Bobby, I want you to kick it off. How are you starting to put together your top 5?
Yeah, I think number 1 is pretty easy. Now listed on PFF as an edge rusher, no longer a linebacker, it's Micah Parsons. To me, he's easily the best defensive player in the league, and it's not even close. It's Micah Parsons, and then there's everybody else, just because of what he can do. Ridiculous numbers in his first 2 seasons, 89 and 90 grades in his first 2 seasons. 29 sacks in 2 seasons, that's unreal. 116 hurries. Like, this dude is just a freak, and he's not even lined up as an edge all the time. So, you think about those numbers, and it's just absurd. 6 forced fumbles. Oh, and by the way, a 77.9 coverage grade. Micah Parsons is just unreal. I'll never forgive Dave Gettleman for trading back and getting Kadarius Toney instead of Micah Parsons. It's just absolutely absurd. And look, yeah, we just talked about it, right? PFF has him listed as an edge. He's been listed as a linebacker before. I don't want to give anything away here, but there may be in the future some position flexibility in all 22 where you might be able to have him as either a linebacker or an edge, whatever you want. So keeping that in mind, it just adds to his value. Seems like Dan Quinn is going to stay there until the Cowboys win a Super Bowl, which who knows when that's going to be. So I think all those things just kind of are in Micah Parsons' favor, and he's still just 23. So honestly, at the end of the day, he's one of the scariest players, if not the scariest player in the league. He's a gold jacket talent at just 23 years old. If you can get your hands on him, get him. There's really no debate here at number 1.
Wait, you only told half the story of that trade, though. Kadarius Toney was 1 pick, but you guys got another first from that. Who did that end up being? I don't remember.
We got Evan Neal the next year. Okay. So we'll see.
The 2 don't combine to Micah Parsons, but no. Evan Neal could have a
Micah
good...
Parsons.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, right? So, yes, we got Evan Neal in the next draft, but we also got Kayvon Thibodeau. And I understand that wasn't part of the trade, but I don't think you can get Kayvon Thibodeau without knowing that at 7 you're going to get Evan Neal. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
I do kind of
play or something, right? Yeah.
Right. I think if we only had pick number 5 and not number 7, maybe that's Ekwonu and we don't get the edge rusher. So That's kind of where I'm at with that. But still, Micah Parsons would have been pretty sick.
Lawrence Taylor 2.0.
Is that to say that he's better or just another version of him?
He would have been, if he was in New York, he would have been the next Lawrence Taylor.
I understand, but you say 2.0. Yeah. And usually when you say 2.0, that means it's better than...
I'm not getting into that tonight.
Okay. I'm glad, because I'd probably log off if you were to say that he was better. I'd end the podcast.
Keep going with the rest of your list.
You don't want to debate on the podcast? Episode. You don't want to debate on the podcast?
That's pay-per-view.
Okay. You're scared, and you're wrong. Number 2, Nick Bosa. So obviously part of an outstanding defensive unit in San Fran, right? I don't see that unit going where I understand D'Amico Ryan's got a job somewhere else. But I expect the next defensive coordinator to have similar success. Just as we give Shanahan for being this offensive genius, I think John Lynch deserves a lot of credit for how he's building these defenses for D'Amico Ryans and Robert Saleh. So I have confidence that the next guy is going to be just fine because this unit is just absurd. And Nick Bosa at 25 to be part of it, I think that's great for him. And in his 4 seasons, he's never graded below an 84. 3 of his 4 seasons with an 89 plus grade. He's just the model of consistency. 40 sacks in the last 2 seasons. Give me a break. And 98 hurries. And just 1 game this past year where he's graded below a 60. So he's the ultimate plug and play edge rusher. You can keep him for the next, I don't know, what do you guys think? 7-8 years, and he's going to give you that very good to elite play. That's a no-brainer.
Well, I'm curious now because I don't think there's many lists that get to 2 and don't have Myles Garrett listed. So is that your number 3?
Myles Garrett is my number 3.
Okay.
And it's really just because he's 27. I mean, otherwise that would have been tough. If they were the same age, that'd be really tough. But Myles Garrett, 92 grades in each of his last 2 seasons, 90 plus pass rush grades in his last 4 seasons, and 18 sacks in the last 2 years. And 92 pressures. Like he's unreal. There's really not much more that you have to say about Myles Garrett. The only thing is, yeah, he's 27 at this point, which I don't think that's old, but where we just said that Nick Bosa has probably 8 years of elite play left, or very good play left, Myles Garrett, you could say, probably has about 5, if we're using that same 32-year-old marker right there. Going to number 4, it's Max Crosby. And yes, I understand he's 25, but the thing that's always going to scare me with Max Crosby, as good as his last 2 seasons have been, is that there are those down seasons with like the sub 65 grades. And I think those are long gone. I think he fits well with Patrick Graham. He seems to do well there with him. But that's enough for me to put him behind Myles Garrett. If you're looking in that 3 to 5 year window and you're building your startup team, I think you got to give Myles Garrett the edge. But Max Crosby's right there behind him. He has ridiculous 2021, 2022 seasons, 90 and 91 grades, 26 sacks and 111 pressures. He's unreal. Number 5 is going to be a little controversial, okay, guys? So just be ready for this. Jalen Phillips, baby. Let's get it. So maybe a crazy pick here, but whatever. Let's do it. So Phillips showed everyone why he was the number 18 pick in the 2021 draft this year. He's part of a young, hungry, monstrous defensive line in Miami with Bradley Chubb, Zach Seiler, and Christian Wilkins. I think Zach Seiler is super underrated. So to be part of that unit, I think bodes well for Jalen Phillips. He's even younger. He's 23, 88.1 or 88.8 defensive grade in 2022, 90.1 pass rush grade in 2022, 20 sacks in his last 2 seasons, and 48 hurries. I love him moving forward. You might laugh at his name on this list. You might comment that it's a bullshit name. But you can bet that he's going to earn himself some respect in 2023. He's going to earn his spot there. Now, you might notice Chase Young's not on this list, which is total fair point. But if you look at his last 3 seasons, he's played less and less over the past 3 years. And I just don't think you can trust that with a top 5 edge pick. Edge being so important. And to think that, like, how many of these guys didn't even get paid yet? Parsons didn't get paid. Jalen Phillips hasn't gotten paid. Chase Young himself hasn't gotten paid. So to think that this position's only going to get more important and you're going to gamble on a guy that's not playing, I just don't see it. Put him in at number 6, no problem, but I'm not putting him at number 5.
Taking a sip of water because I need a second. I need a second to digest.
While you do that, just note that at no point in the last 3 seasons has Chase Young eclipsed a 90 pass rush grade.
Okay, well, I'm gonna throw a little curveball at you because I know we got some Steeler fans out there, right? And Steeler fans are gonna go to the grave shouting that TJ Watt is the best edge in the NFL, and he was not in your top 5.
The best ability is availability, and he's another player who wasn't always available. And also have to mention, he's 28 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think he's elite, but this is also a deep position of elite players. There's certain positions we'll talk about where there's only 2 guys you can put in that category, but I think you can put a bunch here. I just don't have him as top 5.
Okay. And I'm just trying to speak for the Steeler fans, even though I'm not one, but 91.3 grade in 2019, 91.6 in 2020, 89.5 2022, and an 81.7 2022. So you have literally 4 elite years in a row. I know there's some injuries in there, but it's really hard for me to leave him off that list. I kind of understood the Chase Young pick. Jalen Phillips definitely deserving of some mention, but I think TJ Watt would probably be my 5. I didn't disagree with most anything else on your list, but I think TJ Watt would take the 5 spot for me.
Would you take TJ Watt over Rashawn Gary?
You had to do that, Ray. You had to do that.
Asking. Like Rashawn, you knew I was mad at you. 25 years old, and when he played this year, he played very well. He was a top 12 pass rusher in the league. 25. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have the as much of an injury concern as some of these other guys do.
Listen, the reason
Where does he fall?
The reason I didn't know you were going to wear this shirt today, but the reason I'm wearing this shirt is out of shame, right? Because my Packers didn't do enough this year for me to be mentioning them all that much, right? Because we're going to be in this draft with a top 20 pick for the first time in a long time. And I'm not proud of that, right? So yes, I could go on here and say Rashawn Gary deserves a top 5 spot, but the fact of the matter is I still don't think he did enough this year. He has had one elite year, but this year was a step down and he had a major injury. And for him, he never really had the production. That was always the concern. Yes, he's had 2 good years in a row now, but now you have an injury, right? And it's going to be, we're going to get rid of some guys. This is going to be a younger team. It's not going to be as easy for him, I don't think, going forward. If he does it again next year, right? Kind of like the Patrick Mahomes conversation we had, right? It's like if he does it next year when things aren't as great around him, he'll probably make my top 5 next year, but he needs to do a little more to prove it to me.
Okay. I mean, that's interesting because the reason I ask, and I'm not sure where I'd have him either, but I look at that as more of a long game in the sense that I'm not even banking on him bouncing back per se in 2023. I'm looking at him and going, okay, based off of that knee injury, you basically take the year as a wash. Not that he's going to be terrible. He's probably still startable and all that, but his ceiling, you're looking towards his ceiling in 2024 and beyond when he's still, 26 years old in those, 26, 7, and 8, years of play where he's really entering his prime. If you want to play the long game, I think it's a fair play. I didn't want to go this whole segment without mentioning him just because, you're a little down in the dumps on your boys over there.
I appreciate that, Ray. I really do. I appreciate you doing that. We were at odds last week, so I appreciate you coming to my defense here. But I think we all have a little bit of a different vision on dynasty, right? So like I've talked about it before. I don't want to keep talking about it too much, but for me, it's really about a 3-year window. I don't try to do much more than that. So if we're going to say a guy's going to last at least 32 and TJ Watt's 28, I'm going to get in that 3-year window, and I feel confident. Like saying a guy's 25, if he's not as good as the 28-year-old, I'm probably going to go with the 28-year-old.
Yeah, I'm more of like the 10 to 12-year window guy, if you haven't noticed.
I have.
Looking at some of these high school 5-stars and just taking notes. So, but fair enough.
Anybody you should mention? Like, for example, what about
that's
Will
for
Anderson?
Me to know and you guys to find out for right now. We still got some rookie drafts coming up in a few months. So,
okay. All right. Let's talk about that real quick, though. Do you think we said it last time? Is there an edge rusher that makes this list? Do you think Will Anderson is a guy that can make top 5 next year?
I don't. I think he's really good. I think he's better than as a prospect than the edges last year, but I don't see the elite right away, no brainer type Myles Garrett talent in him. I think he has a ceiling that could get him around the top 5 in the league, but I don't see can't miss, no brainer generational guy that some others might sort of prognosticate because everybody does that, from now until late April. I think he's very good. Definitely would be my number 1 in the last 2 classes, but I don't see top 5 in the next year or 2.
Okay.
Can't wait to be wrong.
Ray, you want to talk about defensive interiors and kick off that conversation?
Yeah, definitely. So this was basically like a year of just breakout players, right? Aaron Donald's been the top of this list for years, a decade, right? 9 years of, over 90 grades, just an actual generational player. And this year he finished third, which is still obviously very respectable, but missed multiple weeks throughout the season. And Chris Jones is the one who really stepped up there and took the top honors there on the defensive interior with 65.8 all 22 points, which is 2.9 points higher than the next guy, which is not a small margin when you're talking just from 1 to 2, especially. But, there's still a lot of young guys sort of really stepping up here. And I don't see, basically a single defensive interior guy being at the top of the list for the next decade like Aaron Donald was, right? You had Dexter Lawrence, 25 years old, had a monster year with a 92 grade. He was second in all 22 points. Cam Hayward continued to build on his resume. He was third in all 22 points, despite his age and everything else. He played very well. You have Christian Wilkins, who was fourth down in Miami. You already mentioned that monster front. He's just another part of it. They're only getting better. And we also had Derek Brown to round out the top 5 with an 84.4 PFF grade and 60 all 22 points. And then, right here in New York, Quinnen Williams finished 9th. Would have finished much higher if he hadn't missed 2 weeks. And he had the 4th highest grade. Again, just taking into account the grade and not the points accumulation there, which is good for 4th in the league. So a lot of young breakout defensive interior players here. And of course, can't go without mentioning, fan favorite DJ Reader. He missed a lot of the season, but when he was in the game, he made a huge impact. I mean, we have his highlights up. It seemed like every week we were just posting another just monstrous play from him. He had a great showing with an 87.3 PFF grade. So, he made his impact in Cincinnati and is still going strong. So a lot of defensive interior players to really pick from. And I feel like a year or two ago, it wasn't looking that way. So I guess, what is, where do you guys see the top 5 shaking out on the defensive interior?
No, I don't get last week I gave you guys the top 5s to do. I wanted to get in this week, and I thought this was a great position to do that. So I was a little greedy. I took a good one. And unfortunately, DJ Reader did not make my top 5, but I will say that he's a beast, and I do have him in my top 10 if we were to do a top 10. I'm going to go in reverse order. I'm going to start with my number 5 pick. And I want to just be really careful because of what I just said to Bobby about edge. I think of the 3-year window, right? I had TJ Watt at 5 when I was talking about this, right? And I was okay with your 4 before that being guys with elite talent. So the reason I had TJ Watt over Jalen Phillips is because I didn't feel he was elite. But at the defensive interior positions, I think that there are a lot of young guys that are elite. So age would make a difference to me. So I just want to preface my rankings with that a little bit. So at number 5, I actually have the guy that finished first, which is Chris Jones, right? He's 28 years old. He's going to be 29 next year. He had a 92 season grade, and it's his sixth year above 80, which is fantastic. If you're watching the playoffs, you've been watching a lot of Chris Jones. You're watching him just straight bully people, and he really was potentially the difference maker between the Chiefs making the Super Bowl and them not making the Super Bowl. At least that's how it seemed to me. But I have him here at number 5 just because, again, there are a lot of young guys and elite guys that I think will make the list before him. So moving to number 4, I have Derek Brown. He's still 24 years old, and I feel like we've talked about him for 5 years because that's how young he was when he came in the league. A lot of the guys on this list too, including Derek Brown, what I'm going to say is it's a difficult position just to come in the league and be amazing, right? Like there's not many people that do that. There's only one Aaron Donald, right? Everybody else takes a little bit of time. And I think Derek Brown was one of those guys. He's going to get a new coaching staff. I'm excited to see what they do with him. I'm hoping they don't trade, Brian Burns and other guys that make Derek Brown's job just a little bit easier because I'm excited to see Derek Brown continue the tear he's been on. And at number 3, sorry, Bobby, I have him at 3, but still, that's pretty impressive. Dexter Lawrence, after he's also 25, and with his first year above 80, but it was at a 92. He was tied for first in PFF season grade with a 92. He's a guy, again, just a true disruptor. He's the leader of that defense. I love what he's doing there in New York. And I think he really is going to be a stalwart on that defense for a long time. But I have Quinnen Williams at number 2.
Jeez.
And the reason being is because Quinnen also had an elite 90 grade this year, over 90 grade, but it's his second year with a grade above 80. So he's shown in other years that he has that elite talent in him. He has the draft pedigree, right? He was supposed to be that talent. I think he's a true disruptor, but he's not as true as the guy I have at number 1, who is Jeffrey Simmons. Jeffrey Simmons, also a guy that's 25 years old. It's his second season with an above 80 grade. He dealt with some injury stuff. The reason I have him above the rest is because when I watched young Aaron Donald, when I watched young Chris Jones, I saw true disruptors. I don't think there's many of those guys in the league. Guys that on every single play, I'm watching them control the game and make a difference. There was a few games this year that the Titans were televised in New York, and I got to watch Jeffrey Simmons wreak havoc on offenses. And it was every single play that he was making a difference. And it's something, again, I don't see quite as much in guys like Quinnen Williams, Dexter Lawrence, and Derrick Brown. I think if I was starting a team today, if I had to pick one, it's Jeffrey Simmons. And I will just defend myself by saying Aaron Donald is not in my top 5. He is my number 6. Ray, you said it, 9th season in a row, over 90. He has some injury stuff going on. He's talked retirement before. With the other elite talent in the league now, I just can't pick him over the other guys. What do you guys think of my list so far?
I was about to go. I'll just say real quick. I saw you want to jump in there, Bobby,
No,
but I was
good.
about
Go.
to say, Chris, where's Jeffrey Simmons? Once you got to like 3, I was like, wow, he doesn't have Jeffrey Simmons in there. He had him 1. And I think it was mentioned on the PFF NFL pod, I think a couple weeks back, Sam and Steve were talking about the Titans roster and how when you kind of look at it from afar, it's not terribly impressive. And it's kind of one of those deals where it's like, how are they winning this many games? How are they always in the playoff picture, right? And how are they performing this well? And when you watch them, it's because it's like Jeffrey Simmons is just kind of holding that entire thing together when he's out there on the field, and they really miss him when he's not. And I don't know about number 1, but I love him, and I was going to have him higher than I thought you were going to have him, so I don't really have an argument. So, Bobby, you can have at it because I got a few more things to say. But
yeah, no, I mean, I think you knew what I was going to say before I even got a chance to say it. I mean, I kind of had a feeling you'd probably put Quinnen Williams ahead of Dexter Lawrence. But damn, dude, that hurt to hear it.
Yeah, I'm sorry I had to do it.
But I get it. I think Dexter Lawrence has been good, like really good, since he's come in the league, but not great the way we just saw him. Mm-hmm. But then again, the way we just saw him was like unreal. And we got and I can only attribute that to Wink Martindale and the fact that he might leave and he's so deep in the process with the Colts. Yeah, that's worrisome. And I'd probably put Quinnen Williams above Dexter Lawrence too. So I really don't have any issues with your list other than Jeffrey Simmons being that high. I'd probably have him after Williams and Dexter Lawrence, but I get it.
Okay. Ray, you had more to say?
So if you're in a startup draft, you're in the 7th round, 8th round, you have Aaron Donald, Christian Wilkins, and Jordan Davis on the board. Are you really taking Aaron Donald over those 2 names?
It's all about how I'm building my team.
That's a cop-out answer.
It's how I'm building my team. So listen, if you asked me if I could only pick one of those guys to be on my team, I'm picking Aaron Donald. But if you were, and I think he's an animal. Like the dude will win. Like I heard Sam and Steve say it actually earlier, or maybe it was just Sam, but Sam said, he's like, in football, it is not a one-on-one sport, right? So the Rams lose games. Aaron Donald has never lost a game. Aaron Donald wins every single time he's on the field. I want that guy on my football team every single time. But I do have Christian Wilkinson on my list at 7. I had Jordan Davis at 9. I actually had your boy at 8, Aleem McNeil. And the reason I actually didn't have him higher, because I thought about it, but there's a chance he's not even the best young defensive interior on that team after this draft. And that's hard.
But that would only make him better.
It's true, but I couldn't put him in the top 5, especially with the other guys on this list. But yeah, I'm talking about Jalen Carter. We said it about Will Anderson. Jalen Carter, defensive interior, it's a really hard position to be good at as a rookie. I don't think he makes the top 5 next year, but in 3 years, he absolutely could be the number 1 guy on this list.
Just curious, can I get a price check on Kenny Clark, your favorite player?
Kenny Clark's a really solid player. He's a really solid player, but I think he's turning 27 or 28, and he's not elite anymore. Like, he's really good, but he's not elite.
Give me some names in his range. Like, where are you putting him?
I'd put him probably like 11, 12, 13. Like, he's definitely top 15 for me, but it's hard, right? Like, would you take him, or would you take your boy on the Dolphins, Zach Seiler?
Yeah.
Right? Like, guys like that. It's like, that's the range I'd probably put him in, right in with those guys.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I was just curious because I know you were so hyped when you drafted him. So.
Yeah, thanks. That's a story for another day, but yeah, I wanted Reggie Ragland. All right. Yeah, I'll end it on that.
Well, segueing in the linebackers, which is linebackers next? Or linebackers next?
Corner is next.
Okay, but let me just make a note about Reggie Ragland. I was doing the linebackers section, and he was like, obviously with position minimums taken out, he was like the 3rd ranked linebacker, just to show how much of a crapshoot it is. Keep going.
That is actually insane. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So maybe I wasn't that wrong. But okay, moving to corner. And the reason it's 3rd, because they have the 4.5% weight, which is good for 3rd on our defensive players. Similar to defensive interior, it feels like a changing of the guard at the cornerback position, right? We saw Sauce Gardner, who wasn't even thought of as the best cornerback in this last draft, getting picked after Ray's favorite, Derek Stingley Jr., but he proved his value with just not a loud voice, but also with his loud play. Sauce finished his rookie season as PFF's highest graded and our highest scoring corner with an 88.5 PFF grade and 54.3 all 22 points. Jalen Ramsey having another great season, finished 2nd. So another young guy, Tyson Campbell, took the next steps in his career, finishing 3rd on the season and helping out that Jags defense make the AFC divisional round, which is really impressive for such a young team. Then, surprisingly to some people, right, a guy like L'Jarius Sneed finished 4th on our list with another big year. He's proving to be a really elite talent there, even though, he gets beat sometimes, but he's really showing that he's a solid and consistent guy for them. And then rounding out the top 5, it's Kendall Fuller with a 76.6 PFF grade, 50.7 all 22 points. So that was our top 5 finishers of the year. A guy like Patrick Surtain actually finished 2nd. Would have finished 3rd, but he missed the snap count 1 week, which is, kind of sucks, but that is what it is. But I think in a lot of people's mind, right, he's probably right behind Sauce as that consensus 1 and 2. But we'll see. We'll see what Ray has to say about that. And before you jump in, just one other guy to mention is Tariq Woolen. He was the 5th round pick who finished 12th for us this year, which is incredible. 71.6 PFF grade, 49.2 all 22 points. Just another name on a long list of Seahawks rookies that made a giant impact this year. So Ray, with that, go ahead. Tell us what you started to do with your top 5.
Yeah, so corner for me was essentially a mix of, kind of like a changing of the guard, but also some old hats still holding firm that are also not as old as you think they might be, right? So number 1, I think it's Sauce Gardner. Even if you don't, when you take a step back, think he is actually the most talented or best corner in the league, right? Maybe it's like, well, he kind of played to his ceiling, and you know how corners are a bit variable. So you're not anticipating him to be the number 1 corner in 2023. Given his performance, his age, the fact that, that you would think that roster is only going to continue to get better, that I just can't put him anywhere outside of number 1. Number 2 is Patrick Surtain, the 2nd. He had the 2nd highest coverage grade out of any cornerback in 2022. And I just said it, cornerback has a lot of variability from year to year. But when you watch him play, Surtain in particular, you just don't see a lot of variability down to down. I mean, everything is just so patient. He's just so comfortable. His technique is just so on point. He's got the size, the speed. Everything just looks so easy for him and so steady. So I'm going to be watching him pretty closely this year to see if he is sort of that tendency breaker where you just don't see that fluctuation year to year. So we'll check back in 12 months there. The Broncos, they lost Justin Simmons and K'Wan Williams, at certain points in time this past year in the secondary, and he just kind of kept humming along. He wasn't really impacted by the surroundings, around him in Denver. And a lot of times, that roster as a whole was, whether it was on the field or on the sideline, just getting frustrated with that offense, right? And so with the new staff, maybe that roster as a whole gets a shot in the arm. And, we'll see if that only helps him from there. But I really love Surtain's game and how comfortable he is. And speaking of comfort, I have Jair Alexander third, still I think just like 25 and a half years old. He's proven it. He's entering his prime now. Feels like he's been in the league for quite a while, but he's still going strong. So I can't put him any lower than 3. And that's mainly due to age, I would guess. And then similarly, again, talking about some, steady Eddie guys here, I have Marlon Humphrey at 4. And it feels like he has been in the league for 7 years now almost. He joined the league in 2017, but he's still just going to be 27 years old when he plays in 2023. So it feels like he's been around for a long time, but that is still peak prime age. And he's just consistently in the 70s. His low point was in 2021 with a mid-60s season grade. Otherwise, he's steady Eddie in an organization that is pretty much steady Eddie when it comes to always, landing good talent and just always being in the playoff picture and, just not having much drama or anything else surrounding him. Although now lately with Lamar, we see that kind of changing a bit. But just in general, it's a good organization, a good player, goes strong year after year. So I can't put Marlon Humphrey outside of the top 4. And then Jalen Ramsey sneaks in at 5. I thought about leaving him off completely because he is 28. And with corners, I don't really like once that number hits a 3 there for your age, I'm out. It's just so hard to play. And, when things go south, they can go south in a hurry. But kind of strategizing a bit here, I like the corners in this upcoming rookie class, if you could stay away from Kelee Ringo, and maybe even the class hereafter. So you asked for some sort of, some words earlier about some long-term prospects. I guess there it is for you. So I wouldn't mind taking Jalen Ramsey very early, kind of with an eye on taking some young or rookie corners, maybe in the middle rounds of my draft if I'm in a startup, knowing that I can ride Jalen Ramsey for the next 2 years, and then he can sort of pass the torch in my cornerback room. So that's my top 5. It's a mix of, super young guys with Sauce and Surtain at 1 and 2, Jair Alexander and Marlon Humphrey at 3 and 4, kind of, in those prime peak years. And then Jalen Ramsey sort of enjoying the sunset of his career for the next 2 years at number 5.
I'll let you go first, Bobby.
The sunset. So, yeah, I guess you're ending on Jalen Ramsey. I just kind of wanted to ask you. So he put up kind of a cryptic social media post the other day where it sounds like he's leaving Los Angeles. It sounds like that was kind of it for him as a Ram. So is there anywhere he could go where he jumps to number 4 on your list? Is there anywhere he can go where it's like, maybe he's not on my list at all? So I just kind of want to get your opinion on that, given that he is 28 years old too.
It's interesting. So the first team that just popped into my head here, and I know you're going to ask this question, so just off the top of my head, and I don't think it would happen, right? But we talked about that front in Miami, and I feel like those corners are kind of aging too, right? Byron Jones is up there in age, Xavier Howard. So, I mean, I don't think it would ever happen, but if he were in Miami, that would probably shoot him up the list because I think that's an awesome situation, and he gets to go against Mac Jones twice a year, and we'll see what happens with the Jets and their quarterback situation there. But maybe that would bump him up. But it's one of those deals where maybe that gets him to like number 3 for 2023, but then back down again when he's 29 years old heading into 2024. So it's kind of a short-lived bump if his situation gets better.
Miami's a great answer. Now I really want to see that happen.
Yeah. If they can have the money to do it, that'd be a great spot.
Yeah.
So I'll jump in next. There's names you left off that I'm curious about. I just want to know what you think of guys like an AJ Terrell, right? Just still 24 years old. Denzel Ward, 25, will be 26 next year. And then even like a guy like JC Horn, who's 22 years old. Where do those guys fall on your list?
So I would have had, of those names, JC Horn next. I'm a big fan of his. He had the injury in his rookie season that kind of set him back. And then, to get up to speed in a year where you lose your coach and, there's a bunch of turmoil on the team, he still finished 27th in overall coverage grade, which is not bad at all for a young player at his position. He's still 22 years old. So I like Horn a lot. I didn't number, anybody outside of my top 5, but I think I would have JC Horn, and I'll throw one you didn't mention, but Travarius Ward, probably 6 and 7. And that might be a surprise name. I've always liked Travarius Ward, another big corner that moves really well. Many moons ago, the Cowboys traded him in training camp for like a camp body offensive lineman. It was actually like low-key the dumbest move they've done in years, even worse than giving away Amari Cooper for free. But what I like about Travarius Ward is that while, coverage grades as a whole are pretty variable year to year for corners, he's a big defender, and he's a badass run defender. So he's kind of always like that steady tackler and presence in the run game from your secondary. And while that doesn't, really drive the bus to like give you those high end elite grades, it can provide a nice steady floor for you. So I really like Travarius Ward outside of that top 5, but JC Horn was right there. I think if it wasn't for the injury, and maybe I just saw a little bit more this past season, he could have cracked the top 5 and maybe unseated Jalen Ramsey there.
Do you want to ask him about Diggs, or do you want me to?
Go for it.
Yeah, Diggs. Where's Diggs?
I like Diggs. He's probably on the lower end of the top 10 for me. It's just so here's the thing with Trayvon Diggs, right? He performed better than you think this year while not having the same amount of those like game-breaking turnovers or takeaways that you saw the year before in 2021. Mm-hmm. His coverage grade was up by like 10 points. And when you watch the Cowboys, he's really not thrown at much. And there were a couple of times late in the year where then he gave up like that one play that really just left a sour taste in your mouth, but overall was much more steady as a player. So I can actually see him, if he continues down that path, actually shooting up pretty highly. If he does get his hands on more passes and becomes, gets more of those takeaways while still being more of a steady player, he's kind of a sleeper, right? I think outside of Cowboys world, where I see him all the time, people are starting to forget about him a little bit because he didn't have those takeaways that were on SportsCenter every week, if people still watch SportsCenter. But he might be a sleeper with some upside there, because believe it or not, he's like getting better down to down as a corner.
What was his grade this year? I didn't see it.
I think it was like 67.6. So it wasn't like amazing, but like he got that grade without doing well at what he does best, which is generating turnovers. He got that grade and improved upon that 2021 grade by improving at everything else in his game. So if those turnovers come back around and he makes some more of those plays that he has a penchant for, that's where I think it could shoot up.
Yeah,
Ray, you're my favorite Cowboy fan, but something I've noticed with all Cowboy fans, you're really good at sugarcoating. Like, really good.
He asked about him. I didn't even bring him up. You can't tell me he brought him up.
No, I know. It's like, but it's like, oh, he had a 67 grade, but he's elite. He's going to be great. He's fine.
I didn't say that. I said because he's a sleeper.
Well, I actually asked that question tongue in cheek because, like, just to rile you up a little bit. But I actually agree with what you said, Ray. He was much better than last year. Like, after last year, people were talking about him so highly, and he was very low on my list. But this year, I saw a lot of things that I actually liked, where it wasn't so like really, really hot and really, really cold. It was more consistent football, and that's what you want to see. Like, especially when you have Micah Parsons, rushing the passer every time and getting a million hurries. You want a corner that's going to do the things right, because it will put him in a better position.
Yeah, so I think one thing to look out for, since we're just going to ignore Bobby's little like snark.
No, I don't think he's bad. I don't think he's bad. I just love how it's 67, 65 grade, whatever. He's going to be great.
He's doing the little things. But one thing I think actually to really keep an eye on, actually, though, when it comes to what we just discussed about, hey, maybe he does take that next step if he can now go back to generating those turnovers while still performing as steady as he did this past year. Mm-hmm. The Cowboys actually shore up that other cornerback spot because it was a revolving door this year. Anthony Brown got hurt. Just those corners in general, whoever was opposite Trayvon Diggs got picked on. And if they get someone there who is a quality cover guy, who's not someone you're just going to target right off the bat that you know you're going to before the ball's even snapped, then you might take some more chances throwing towards Trayvon Diggs' side, and that could lead to those turnovers we saw in 2021, and that could lead to the boost in his grade.
You had to get him going, Chris.
Yeah, I had to. We'll move on to linebacker. Linebacker, next position, 4.26 weight. While Micah Parsons might not be a linebacker in the system next year, he was one this year, right? Micah's 91.6 PFF grade was good for first among all linebackers and would have landed him second among edge rushers right behind Myles Garrett this year. Micah is one of the emerging stars in the league, and his best years are definitely ahead of him, right? So yada, 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 Cowboys. But behind him is veteran linebacker Bobby Wagner. And his first year in LA, Wagner showed his value, even if the team didn't have the success it wanted to, right after a Super Bowl win. And then after that, TJ Edwards finished third with an 84.4 PFF grade and a 51.9 all 22 points. Just another guy stepping up for the Eagles this year and really doing a great job. And then right after that, 26-year-old Fred Warner finished fourth. We'd love to see that rebound year from him. Definitely a guy that everybody's calling, potentially the top linebacker in the league. So that's definitely where you want to see him finish, getting a little bit more consistent there. And then finally at number 5, veteran and all 22 friend, we have Demario Davis finishing 5th. True veteran. Don't know how many years, he's going to be still in the league, but I hope he goes out on top like this. Love seeing that. And Bobby, giving you the hardest position really to rank besides maybe center. So how do you start ranking these linebackers?
Bobby's going to grow to love linebackers. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
It always ends up with Bobby and linebackers.
Did we get a retweet? Yeah, I think you guys gave me this one on purpose, by the way.
But for sure.
Did we get a retweet from Demario Davis? Was that what we got?
We've gotten multiple. That's why I called him an all 22 friend.
Yeah.
He's a friend of the pod.
That's really cool. I should have put on the list. No, honestly, going through this list, I'm like, what's the point? What is the point of this? Because other than number 1, the rest is you could just argue with me. It does not matter. And you'd be right to argue because
we will.
Because this will look completely different when we assess it at the end of next season. But number 1, I have Fred Warner. Easy pick as the dynasty number 1 linebacker. Still just 25 years old, and he's a set-and-forget linebacker, which is unheard of at this position. It's so volatile. 80-plus season grades in his last 3 seasons. And as I mentioned, I think that defensive unit for San Fran is going to stay about where it is. It's going to be a solid unit. Not to mention he lines up between Dre Greenlaw and Azeez Al-Shaair, the FAU grad. So I think the future is bright for Fred Warner. If you can get your hands on him, do it because this position is just a crapshoot. Going to number 2, I have Nick Bolton at number 2. I definitely weigh age in maybe higher than I've heard you guys do it, maybe. But he's 22 years old. Great number, by the way. Very promising first 2 seasons. 74.7 grade in 2022, 72.5 grade as a rookie in 2021. So one of the hardest positions to grade well at. He's done it for his first 2 years, and starting at age 20, which is unreal. He actually, if you look through his PFF profile, reminds me a lot of TJ Edwards in the fact that he can do everything well. But unlike TJ Edwards, he's doing everything well at 22 years old. I'm going to keep emphasizing that because I think it's incredible. It's the whole reason I have him here at number 2. He's an excellent tackler with just a 6.4% missed tackle rate, which I think is great for him. 83 tackle grade to back that up, 78.4 run defense grade to back that up, honestly, he's about as good as you can expect for a young linebacker. So like him at number 2. Again, the way I draft linebackers, I would not take him very high. I just kind of get what's there. But yeah, I'd definitely have him the second ranked linebacker on my list. Number 3, I have Dre Greenlaw. So I mentioned him before, right? The guy that's on the other side of Fred Warner. He's also 25 years old. That's a pretty young linebacker core with Azeez Al-Shaair, like I mentioned. Those are all 3 young guys. I expect them to stick together, and I think the 3 of them only get better moving forward. Another solid tackler with just a 6% missed tackle rate. Also, I think that's super important for linebacker grading. And he's getting better in coverage, right? So in 2022, he had an 82.6 coverage grade, which is better than some of the cornerbacks that we just talked about. And then a 79.6 defensive grade in 2022. I really think San Francisco is going to try and keep this unit together for a while. So definitely like getting a couple players from that unit. Number 4, I mentioned him before, TJ Edwards, 26 years old, part of like that insane Philly defense. We talked about it last week or the week before, how good Howie Roseman is at building the team. I think that Philly defense, that Philly unit is always going to be good around him so long as he's there. He does everything very well, but nothing great. So if you look through his numbers, he can cover 77.1 coverage grade, pretty good. He's effective pass rusher, 80.5 pass rush grade, and plays the run well with a 79.2. Does it all very well, nothing elite. And number 5, I kind of had some fun with this one because you ever play all 22 and like halfway through the year you have this guy that's just like keeps popping up with these elite grades here and there, like just it comes out of nowhere, right? So for me this year it was Caden Ellis in New Orleans. Caden Ellis, I think he was listed as an edge, but now he's a linebacker. But 27-year-old 7th round pick who's finally getting a chance. So 2019 7th round pick from Idaho. Not that I don't know if that matters. I'll probably cut that. But somewhat of a breakout season for him in 2022. Like, really wasn't given a chance his first 2 seasons. Now all of a sudden he's getting all this playing time, playing linebacker. They put him at middle linebacker, and you notice he has a spike in his grades. 90 grades in 2 of the 3 games that he played middle linebacker, as opposed to some of the other positions outside linebacker, and a 79.5 for that 3rd game. So it's not like he was like bad for that 3rd game. So I definitely see him getting more opportunities at the middle linebacker spot as that unit gets a little bit older. We just talked about Demario Davis getting a little bit older. And he excels as a run defender. He's a gamble, but honestly, like this whole list is a gamble. Even Fred Warner, everybody's a gamble top to bottom. So Caden Ellis, baby, roll the dice.
Do you think Tremaine Edmonds was just a flash in the pan?
Yeah, that's why I don't have him on here. What did he have, like 3 seasons of like 60 grades, 70 grades, and then just this one season where it was a low 80? Like that's...
I think try 50s and 40s.
Yeah, okay, sure.
And he's a free agent this year, right? He's going to be on a new team next year, potentially.
Potentially, right.
Yeah, so Tremaine Edmonds come up as like a potential Bobby Okereke, however you say his name.
Mm-hmm. We had to talk about him too, Bobby Okereke. I was going to ask you about him because he's also a friend of the pod, friend of all 22.
Yeah. I mean, 73.3 grade in 2022. Who knows where he ends up? Like, I'm not comfortable with anybody, but like certainly not comfortable with a situation like that. And then Ray, you mentioning Tremaine Edmonds, like no, I'm not gambling on that.
I agree with that. I just wanted to get your take because Tremaine Edmonds' grade was like really boosted by his coverage grade this year. He was actually first out of linebackers in the NFL, and I don't think that's very sustainable. So agreed. Just want your take there. Can you list your top 5 in order again?
Sure. Fred Warner, Nick Bolton, Dre Greenlaw, TJ Edwards, Caden Ellis.
Would Roquan Smith have been 6 or 7?
Yeah, probably. But again, like he's pretty risky. I actually liked Frankie Louvu, like in that range. He's somebody who I considered because like he's got elite run defensive grades, and like that's not just like a flash in the pan thing. The reason I didn't is because I wasn't sure things are a little rocky in Carolina. I don't know how that's all going to shake out. So I kind of stayed away for that reason.
He was that guy for me in all 22 that kept popping up. Every few games, he'd have like this elite grade on my bench, and I'd be like, wish I started him.
Yeah. Frankie Louvu. And then Jawan Bentley was a guy I kept finding myself starting, and he's super young too. A Belichick linebacker. He's not far off that number 5 spot. But
I really liked your Nick Bolton pick at 2. I thought that was brave, but it could pay off. 2 guys I want to just quickly ask you about, because they're 2 guys that were on IR for most of this year. And I'm curious if you see them getting close to the top again next year. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah and Darius Leonard.
So JOK actually played for a while, right? Like he had some games and he didn't really grade all that well. And things are kind of a mess in Cleveland too, which is sort of another reason why I wanted to stay away. Not that things are any cleaner in New Orleans. I'll be honest, like Caden Ellis was kind of an emotional pick just because I was root for the underdog. But yeah, I think JOK could end up on this list next year for sure. You guys know how I like linebackers, the speedy, rangy, athletic type, the guys that like are like converted safeties pretty much. That's exactly what JOK is. And then yeah, Darius Leonard, same thing, man. I mean, this isn't the first time he's gotten hurt for an extended period of time, right? And it's, I don't know, I feel like it gets riskier and riskier, but I don't know. I think it's a mixed bag no matter how you put it.
Yeah, he's not that young anymore either, which is concerning. But you mentioned safety. Let's jump to safety with 3.78% weight. By far, guys, the worst we did at any position with our preseason rankings was safety. This position was decimated with injuries. Derwin James, Amani Hooker, Antonio Winfield Jr., Marcus Williams, and Minkah Fitzpatrick all missed time but played well when they were on the field. Javon Holland and Jesse Bates, right? So that's 7 guys on our list that were not part of the top 10 finishers. Sorry. Jesse Bates and Javon Holland, huge disappointments. Holland had almost 20 points dropped from his grade. He fell all the way to 65.5. After preseason, we were like, there was a rookie safety that broke out. Like I wanted to trade. I remember your cousin Bobby had Javon Holland, and that was like a missing piece for me. And I was almost offering him a first-round pick for Javon Holland. And I'm not saying there's not a future there, but I am happy I didn't. Only one player in our top 10 was healthy enough and good enough to finish the year as an actual top 10 finisher, and that was Kevin Byard, who finished second with 43 all-22 points. And honestly, it was still underwhelming. He had a 78.7 PFF grade. That's our second safety had a 78.7 PFF grade, right? So that should really tell you the state of the safety position. Our number 1 finisher was just a veteran guy, Tyrann Mathieu, who finished with an 81.2. So just for context, that 81.2 is the lowest PFF grade by any positional leader by 7 points. And the next lowest was corner with an 88.5, Sauce Gardner. Another interesting observation, 7 of our top 10 finishers were 29 years or older, which is easily the oldest group of any of our top finishers. Okay, so pretty bizarre kind of position group here. One bright spot was safety, Talanoa Hufanga for the 49ers, who finished 9th on our list with 40.9 all 22 points. And then just one other guy I want to mention, rookie Kyle Hamilton. He didn't make our top 10, but he was top 10 in PFF grading with an 82.3, which was part of the top 10 rookie finishes. So Ray, similar to linebacker, this is a really brutal group of players. The safety position, how do you have your rankings here?
So you know how like when a team does really well and they like blow out their opponent, coaches secretly kind of like it when there's like a couple screw ups there at the end, or maybe like a late touchdown or something. So they have something to like really sort of harp to the team about as far as like staying focused and getting better. But then if you go like too far on the other end of that spectrum, like if you just perform so bad, like everyone has those games where it's just so bad that you just burn the tape and you don't even watch it after it's over, right? And you just kind of move on to the next. That's kind of how safety is for me and how I'm looking at it at the top of the list overall. And it was so bad that I am pretty firm in my belief that he's not going to finish number 1 or maybe top 3 in 2023, but I can't put Kyle Hamilton below number 1. He had high marks across the board. He was top 6 in coverage, pass rush, and run defense performance out of all safeties in 2023 or 2022. Sorry. And he's young and part of a good defensive unit. So how I have nothing to firmly ding him on and move him down the list. So Kyle Hamilton is going to be number 1 for me. Derwin James is going to be number 2 for me because he's still going to be just 27 years old. And his play goes without saying. It's just a matter of, can he stay healthy? And it's really all about health. And when he's healthy, he's a top performer. So fingers crossed, he stays healthy. I think we can mention him by name on the podcast while the PFF pod cannot. So he's going to be number 2 for me. And number 3, again, it's a familiar name, but Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think he was pretty underappreciated actually heading into last year because he had a down 2021 season, but he was still a 3rd overall safety grade-wise in 2022. He'll be 27, so again, right in the prime years. He's got all the tools. Just don't overthink it, especially when there's not a lot of great options around. You don't want to overthink a good player in at the very least, decent situation. So I have Minkah 3rd, and then Jevon Holland 4th. Was it a product of just variability in the secondary? Could be. But we talked about Bradley Chubb and how he kind of makes everybody around him better with, I forget what the stat was as far as sacks created for other players around him and turnovers and things like that due to his pressure. So I think if he's fully integrated there, everyone in Miami could benefit, including Jevon Holland. Maybe he gets back closer to that 2021 form. So I guess I have him at 4th. And then because nobody earned it, I'm going to put Jaquan Brisker at number 5. So it might be a surprise to some, but he's got all the tools. He's super dependable. He does everything well. That was the scouting report coming into the league, was that he just does everything well and he's a really good athlete. And so in his rookie year, he had the 10th most stops of any safety in the league. And if you look at his splits, he lined up in the box 371 times. He lined up 289 snaps at free safety, 100 snaps in the slot, and 43 snaps at corner. So he lined up all over the field and was around the ball. That tells me that the Bears trust him.
So Ray, can you remind me just real quick on Jaquan Brisker, what school did he go to again?
Oh, Jaquan Brisker went to Penn State, the Rose Bowl winning Penn State Nittany Lions.
Yeah. Did you see me, Bobby, taking a shot before?
Yeah. I got to put the logo over his face on that whole segment.
Find the lie. Find the lie.
Yeah. So do you mind just recapping your list 1 to 5?
Sure. So I'll start from the top, right? So Kyle Hamilton, number 1, Derwin James at 2, Minkah Fitzpatrick at 3, Jevon Holland at 4, and then Jaquan Brisker at 5.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I really disagree with any. It's funny, you have Kyle Hamilton at number 1, and I would have put him there too. After this year, I would have put him there too. But I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. Going into the draft last year, I kind of bought into some of that, him being a little overhyped, all that kind of propaganda that we were fed. I'm thinking, okay, he's not that fast. He's not that fluid with his hips. Maybe he's not legit. And then the Ravens took him. And there's certain teams in the league who, when they draft, that they're drafting some good players. They're a very respectable draft history. And the Ravens are one of those teams. And it's okay, they know what they're doing, and clearly they do, because almost a 90 defense grade for a rookie safety, that's just insane. So no problems with your list, no problem with him being there. Really expected Jesse Bates to bounce back and put himself in that list again. I understand there's some new pieces in that secondary, and kind of like what you said about Jevon Holland maybe being a victim of his surroundings. I kind of think the same thing for Jesse Bates. I could see him on this list next year, but understand why he's not there this year, and I probably wouldn't put him this year either.
And I'll second that. I think this is a really hard position, and I don't have strong opinions about anything you said. I think it's all pretty accurate. one player that was not on your list that I want to ask you about, Hufanga. Where do you see him kind of going in, like, is he 10? Is he 15? Is he 6? I don't know.
I wouldn't say he's at 6. I don't think anyone's really like impressed me enough to earn number 6, to be honest. I think I just need to see it maybe just a little more, right? I think he started off really hot and he still finished respectable, right? But he had the 22nd overall grade for safeties, 16th in coverage, 46th in run defense, which is kind of like right smack in the middle there. So he definitely improved upon his 2021 season by a pretty good amount. I think I would just need to see it again before I really ratchet him up the list. And I mean, he's surrounded by a ton of talent. So was he a product of his surroundings there in San Francisco, or is it him? I think at least just evaluating his 2023 season, seeing what he does there, does he continue to improve or not, will make me feel comfortable putting him pretty high up there. But I'm not comfortable just yet.
Yeah, I agree with that. I could totally see him being the guy that like everybody drafts really early next year, even though I don't think we've seen quite enough. Not that he's not good, not that he won't be good. I just don't think we've seen enough to warrant that. But you said nobody's earned number 6. Winfield Jr. on Tampa Bay has been my guy for since he was a rookie because of that, right? Like, it's hard to be a successful rookie at the safety position, and he was that. And then he went, and his sophomore year, he had an 86.1 PFF grade. This year, he dealt with some injuries, but he still had almost an 80 PFF grade, just a few points under. So, it's a hard position. I'm not giving you any crap, but I would say that a guy like that is the perfect person to target if you're unsure of who to take at safety and you need one. That's a guy that's going to consistently get you good grades in Tampa.
I think so. But Tampa Bay is about to just be blown up, right? So
yeah,
who knows what that looks like. And Vita Vea he had a real down year this year. And it's do the surroundings start to fall apart, right? I mean, even in front of him in the second level of the defense, right? Those linebackers are getting pretty old, and I don't know. I like Winfield a lot. I would agree with you that since we're talking outside of the top 5 and there's really no one that really jumps out that you have to have, I think he's definitely worth it. But I do think there's some downside there. But to your point, I don't think it's any more or less downside than anyone else you would take in that sort of range there if you're not picking a premier safety.
Okay. Any other safety questions, Bobby? Good.
Now, should we get into punter? I'm just kidding.
You threw me because I didn't have notes on punter.
The Penn State punters. Just take the Penn State punters.
Okay. Cool. So, I mean, we talked about from a development standpoint, right? We're coming out with this mock draft tool. Should be out pretty soon. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. And if you want to have a leg up on the competition, I definitely recommend you get in there and take a few swings before your real draft. Anything else we want to mention before we close out?
I think we should tweet out a picture of the results page on the mock draft, or
just to tease people a little bit.
Tease a little bit.
I mean, they're going to be bored watching whatever the heck the Pro Bowl is going to put on this weekend, right? So yeah, might as well.
All right. So coming soon to you, to a Twitter near you is going to be.
I think Ray just gave a date. I think coming Sunday.
Coming Sunday. All right. So that's a cool update. We'll share that little social graphic there. Like it. All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. If you haven't yet, please give us a follow on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at all22_PFF, and leave a review wherever you watch your podcast or listen in. And that's it. Everyone have a great weekend. Enjoy this weird Pro Bowl weekend that we have, and then get ready for the big game. See you soon.